And if I'm addressing specifically Nigerian investors, I will say to them that please wear the same glasses that the foreign investors are wearing, because they're picking up a lot of our equities cheap. You will have seen that since the beginning of this year, that from a market cap point of view and from an index point of view, that on a year-to-date basis, that our markets have risen by about 9%. But this is me wearing my market development hat, wearing my regulator hat. I will say to you that through our actions as SEC, not through what we say, despite the vested interests, that we have shown that we have zero tolerance for anything that is improper, because any investor wants to be assured first that they will not be defrauded of their investments. When they make investment decisions knowing that there are risks to the investment, but they do want to be protected from being defrauded. And we as a regulator, through promoting market integrity, through living and walking our talk of zero tolerance for anything that is improper, we will ensure that we will do our own bit. We will hope that through consulting yourselves, who have been very gracious over the last few weeks, and other players, that everybody will come along with us in ensuring that we could promote a market that has the highest levels of integrity. Because as I said earlier, not even us as Nigerians invest in Nigeria because we love Nigeria. People want to be sure that their assets are safe. The first thing that I will say to the investing public is that this market has potential, and it is not potential that is just in words. This is a market that is small today, but when you look at the fact that it doesn't yet reflect fully the Nigerian economy, the potential is enormous. We will have a number of companies list. The CEO of the stock exchange has talked about the pipeline of listing that is coming on board. We have talked about some of what we've done to ensure that companies respect the highest levels of corporate governance standards. So the opportunities to invest are very, very important. However, the first line of protection for any investor is knowledge. And if you don't know about what is being marketed to you, please don't accept it. That is, for me, one of the most important things that I would say to the investing public. There are financial experts, ones that are registered with us, who can help you manage your resources. It is important to save for the future, to save for the education of your children, to save for your health. But please make sure that you use experts that are recognized to help you in investing. If you have any as a CEO, that the limit of my conflict of interest is probably, there is no conflict of interest that I will be exposed to. Because there are processes in the approval process. We have a bottom-up process in our approval process before anything comes to me as an individual or before it comes to the leadership team of the SEC. So there are safeguards against any conflict of interest. I have not faced a conflict of interest necessarily with respect to the activities of AMPAN to date. Indeed, as I said, it was very important for us to be at the table for some of the reasons that you have pointed out, because we were concerned about the extent, given that it's not just a resolution vehicle, but it's also a recapitalization vehicle. So at some point in time, that there would be issues that would mean that it would have a certain level of exposure. So I just want to confirm to you and Nigerian people if they're still watching that there is no conflict of interest. And I personally would not be exposed to a situation of conflict of interest. And indeed, it was this other body that got SEC on the board of AMCON in the first place. Thank you.
Well, I think, but there's no problem. We are given our assurance. I want to give you 100%.
I'm sorry. I need to talk about delegates. But this is one where because of the burden of responsibility that those that you have given the trust to own AMCON on your behalf have felt that I, as the CEO, the MD of NDIC, as the head of NDIC, needs to be on the board of AMCON and that we cannot delegate this responsibility. As you may know, there are many other boards that I am on, and all of those other boards are actually delegated as a responsibility. This is the only board, and that's because of a requirement. In fact, because of my own responsibilities, I had indeed, on one particular board meeting, asked somebody to represent me, and I was reminded through a legal opinion that there was a very clear decision taken that we have to be, as individual members representing our organization, be there in person. But there's no other such board. I don't think there's any other such board that I'm.
Yeah, with regards to specific levels of donor and development partners, financial intervention in SEC in the last 2 years, can you oblige us with that information now? Then I will go to Project 50. Let you rest.
I can make a submission to you. I wasn't expecting that in this session that you would ask me about the level, but I can also just outline them in the two presentations to you. There is actually a submission, but I didn't put dollar amounts or people, numbers or whatever. If you want me to write you a letter specifying each and every one. For example, one of the ones I mentioned to you was that we had a resident advisor with us for 18 months to work with us on fixed income securities. We're right now working with a donor-funded initiative called to help us in capacity with respect to credit analytics. So we have a variety of programs. So if you want me to make a submission and write out all of those. We're also, we've been working with listed companies on helping them transition to IFRS since last year. So we did some work with them more generally. Then we organized them by sectors, and we had sectoral work on IFRS, but there are still some publicly listed companies that are struggling. So we're seeking donor funding from the World Bank to help us set up specific IFRS clinics. I mean, I can go on and on, there's a list of lines, but I didn't realize that you would ask me to give you all the financial or whatever contributions if you want me to make a submission.
That's right. But I want to relate it to the next question. The reason why I asked that is that in the course of this public hearing, a lot of stakeholders have alluded to the fact that there was this Project 50. And I'm happy you did talk about it, though in some detail in the course of your presentation. We're trying to receive some information from some of the stakeholders, but the information was not coming, and they said you were the head, and we'll be able to get those information from you. Now, the truth is that most Nigerians feel that Project 50 was paid for by major players in the stock exchange, in the capital market, sorry. That the donation came through most of the key players in the capital market. If that is the case, what assurance can we give our people, Nigerians, that even though SEC is receiving donation from key capital market players, such will not fetter the discretion of SEC in acting independently as a regulator to enforce the provision of our laws. What assurance can we give them if truly that Project 50 was funded by key players in the market?
Explaining what Project 50 is so that we're not misunderstood as an organization. I believe it was late 2010. Internally, we discussed that one of the things that will help in rebuilding the market was really to focus on promoting Nigeria as a preferred investment destination and to promote the opportunities that Nigeria has to offer. We then outlined a series of programs. One of the first ones was because the Nigerian Stock Exchange was coming up for commemorating 50 years of trading, that what we would do is support them in commemorating that. So in June of 2011, there was a commemoration.
DG, yes. We very well know what Project 50 is all about.
Sorry, other people may not know because we call it Project 50 and say Nigerian.
Well, we are not talking to other people, we are talking to the panel of the National Assembly House of Reps who are out the final 7 things. So we are well informed of what Project 50 is all about. The question is, who were the donors?
Sorry, Honorable Chairman, I'm absolutely certain that if you call it Project 50, then you are well aware. But I do think earlier there was a comment made that somebody had made representation. So anyone who calls it Project 50 is almost very knowledgeable. And we were very public in Nigeria as to the commemoration of 50 years of capital market regulation. So that's why I'm a bit maybe I don't quite understand the question, and maybe that's why I'm trying to see whether I can understand it through explaining what Project 50 represented. So, Project 50 essentially brought people together who were interested in promoting the investment opportunities that Nigeria has to offer. And those people, first and foremost, included four partners: the Central Bank, the Ministry of Finance, SEC, and the Ministry of Trade and Investment. And it is called Project 50 because we were commemorating 50 years of capital market regulation, not 50 years of SEC's existence, because often people actually think that it is 50 years of SEC.
Sorry, because time is fast spent, my question is very simple, DG. Like the chairman has rightly pointed out, the only issue that I did raise is that, you see, if it is true, as it's been alleged, that most of the donors, those who offer donation, are key players in the market. Now, if SEC, as a regulator, takes donations from entities that is supposed to regulate, the feeling is that that has the tendency of getting you to compromise your independence as a regulator. So we wanted to know who are the contributors to this Project 50. Are they key players in the market? If they are not, you just tell us simply and then we'll close this issue.
Sorry, but I think explaining to you that this, in a sense, is a market development initiative, and it is not abnormal to have partners who are private sector. Because I'm trying to, Honorable Dogara, you must be a lawyer, because you say very little and you want me to say more. I'm trying to understand. I'm trying to understand. I'm sorry to all, it's actually a compliment. But I'm trying to understand what it is that you're referring to. Because Project 50 is like many of our initiatives, a market development initiative. And in many market development initiatives, we partner with the private sector. So this, like others, we partner with the private sector. So it is not abnormal for the SEC to partner with the private sector on market development initiatives. I think your concern was that maybe there were private sector people who were listed on the exchange and therefore will compromise themselves. Absolutely not. This is in market development, because, and I talked about the stakeholder-wide community that we have, and that we work in partnership on a number of issues. On issues of investor outreach, we work together on market-wide initiatives. So it is not abnormal. We will not compromise ourselves. We did not compromise ourselves. And what I will do is also make a submission to you, because I wasn't expecting that you would ask me about
this issue. They were asked about donations, whether it is right for them to take donations from prospective or potential litigants before them. So, in sentiment, a very straightforward question: who and who donated? Because if I want to celebrate my birthday, I know that my friends will contribute. Daramola and others will contribute their peanuts. So, who and who contributed? Just a simple question. It's not all about partnering with anybody. The issue is who and who. Was it just a partnership with those you mentioned, CBN and others, they donated and then you celebrated? Or there were other sources that supported that project? And simply these are what we want. If you want to supply that, you can do that later.
The other question, and I've already said, yes, there were other donors. It is a market development initiative, and it is a standard practice that we have at SEC in market development initiatives to have other partners participate in the initiative. So I can make a submission. So I had already responded to that. But I'm just saying that if you had told me beforehand, I will bring the list and read out the list to you, but you didn't tell me beforehand that you were going to ask me about this with respect to lasting solutions for the capital market. So, but there's no conflict of interest issue. It is a market development initiative. It is a partnership to promote Nigeria as a preferred investment destination. And one of the things that that this gives me an opportunity, and maybe that's what you were trying to do, is to explain that we have a regulatory role, but we also have a market development role. In our market development role, we partner with various stakeholders, including the private sector, in the market development role.
I want to take you back a little bit to the issue of AMCON. Are there approvals that ordinarily AMCON in issuance of bonds or requirements are expected of SEC? The issue is this. It is common knowledge in corporate governance that the board of directors are at their best. They remain top management of any organization. Is that correct?
The role of a board is oversight.
No, wouldn't you classify board as the top apex of management?
Not the apex of management, but the apex of an institution. If that's what I'm trying to, because the top management is different. It's the executive, as you know, honorable, that is top management. But the board provides oversight.
So management decisions.
Yes.
My question over to management decisions like you concurred. And there are certain things that will be required of SEC to give approval. Wouldn't you find that challenging if at any point in time, as a member of board of the AMCON, SEC, due to superior knowledge of your people in SEC who would advise, or if there are questions raised, wouldn't you think that it will be safer for you to retain your position of regulation instead of getting involved in a situation where you might be asked to revise yourself after having given approval to AMCON decision which will eventually come to SEC? Thank you.
I think it's a very important issue that you raised, but the board of an organization is a collective body. It is not an individual. So my role, for example, giving the example of AMCON, on the board of AMCON, is distinct from my role as DG of SEC. By being a board member, when a decision is made by the board, it is the collective of the board. So I understand what you mean in terms of some of the challenges, but it is actually a day-to-day challenge that we live in life. For example, the fact that you are National Assembly member does not mean you will not invest in the Nigerian capital market. But it does not mean that you will not carry out your duties as a National Assembly member and carry out your duties or meet your obligations as an investor. That is the day-to-day business. And there are very specific corporate governance guidelines as to how you manage those issues. There will be times when you will need to recuse yourself specifically if you feel that being in that decision could influence that decision. And I have had those circumstances in the time that I've been in Nigeria, and I have recused myself. And I've seen others recuse themselves. But, it's big enough that you all find yourself in a conflict of interest situation. How you manage that conflict of interest is what is important. And usually, when it is a situation that involves others, that helps in managing that conflict of interest. Because by virtue of being a regulator, I've had some in the House say to me, why don't you come and tell us about a transaction ahead of time? It was when I then explained to the party that this could be tantamount to insider dealing, because by virtue of being a regulator, there is some information that I could have, but if I then share it with somebody, and it was a very innocent listen, Batten was just saying maybe we can better understand what is going on. And I said, no, that would be tantamount to insider dealing. So it is what we experience in our day-to-day lives with respect to corporate governance issues. Thank you.
Yeah. My role is I've checked section 10 of AMCON law. Maybe like correctly observed. I think you were corrupted. By law, you are not a member.
Because the process had gone on, and that's why I'm saying that it was going to the honorable who had made this proposal at the public hearing. What they then decided was that in the appointment of, I think, the 4 directors that get appointed, that problem that the board, that problem that the honorable had identified will be cured by making one of those 4 directors be the DG of SEC.
Well, I contingency measure that has to be taken. But by the provision of an AMCON Act, you are not a member. It's something that has to be arranged. You understand me? I don't know. What I'm saying is that if you want me to read that section of AMCON Act, the directors and how they come about is very clear. And there is no provision there that SEC will be a member of AMCON board. There is no provision in the AMCON Act that SEC. I understand what you're saying, they have to. Someone suggested it and the process had passed. Otherwise, it would have been, in the honorable's wisdom, it would have been good to put it. But the process has passed. But by law, by the AFCON provision we have, you are not a member. If you are corrupted, fine, is another thing.
Sorry, Honorable, 4 directors to be appointed, and one of those directors is that on the DG of Equity. So you have 2 levels. There is one where the others are at the other level, and then there's another provision. You have the advantage of having the AMCON Act in front of you, but there is a provision that 4 additional directors will be appointed, and one of those additional ones is the DG of Equity. So I understand the point you're making, but I'm just saying that there is the additional 4, which includes the DG of Equity. But, you know, you are the grassroots of the law. I'm just explaining what happened at the time, because I was in a public hearing in the first half of 2010 when it happened. So whatever is appropriate is what I stand for.
I think that question to you, but what is important is it may not be Ms. Arumote today. It's you today, it could be a different person. And you know, the person claim to lower high ground may not be distributed equitably. We are talking about a situation where those days the law is impersonal. You understand? And we must distinguish it all the time. If you can place it and avoid conflict of interest positions, one of the next person. So we must always, by our action, by provision of law, try to avoid it. And the provision is the additional fact, non-executive director. It says 5 other non-executive directors, 2 to be appointed by the Federal Ministry of Finance, 2 by the Central Bank of Nigeria, and 1 by the Nigeria Deposit Insurance Corporation. The institutions are appointed very carefully. So I believe that the important thing is to be mindful of such situations, and where it is necessary, it will be prudent for a regulator to excuse originally ourselves from such situations that will compromise the process. In spite of whatever you feel, I can avoid that. What is the next person? So I believe that this should be very clear. And with the petition of chairman, I would think that Securities has agreed to make submission on the projectivity. Now the expenditure, the income, will have to have a profile of that transaction. Thank you.
Markets react to a variety of things, ranging from perception to controversies, especially by some regulators of the financial system. Not too long ago, a statement was credited to the CBN governor, who described the capital market as a gambling casino, and said that it will take 4 years for the market in Nigeria to rebound. 3 short questions. So the investing public out there are ready to speak to them on this issue. Should they hold their funds for another 4 years until the market begins to rebound? And then I would also like to know whether you responded at the time these statements were made. And if you did not respond, was that a dereliction of duty? Then finally, going forward from here, how would you address issues like this in the future? Thank you. Honorable Chairman, thank you. Honorable Bukom, thank you, Honorable members. You said, the Honorable Chairman said that I should address the part, but you said I should address the investing public. So I seek the permission of the Honorable Chairman to address the investing public. Sure. Thank you. What I would say, I was just looking for some research that I brought along with me, is that this is the time to invest in the Nigerian capital markets. I alluded to in my presentation, from a price-earnings ratio, it is the second lowest in Sub-Saharan Africa after Kenya, which means that the equities in Nigeria are cheap today.
We can have kind of sharing, we can share the information, and then we can develop the way forward into getting them punished, so that it will serve as a reference point for future purposes. That's the last question I have for you, because I could remember with the NSC man, I was trying to imagine that Nigeria is made up, it's kind of pre-arranged thing. The culprits are always organized, and they are allowed to get away. How best are you generating the way to get them punished? I know you're not law enforcer, but certainly all these facts can start coming from you, legislature, then probably the enforcement authority.
Thank you, Honorable Chairman. Thank you. I really feel very strongly about the cooperation amongst regulators and leveraging the linkages with other agencies. What we learned from the investigation that we sharpened with respect to the Intervened Act, I don't think we would have been able to learn them without the cooperation that we had with some of the other regulatory agencies, because we could look at the returns that have been made to us compared to the returns that were made to Central Bank or NDIC and be able to see where the holes were. So that's one. So cooperation, I think, is very, very critical. The second one is technology. I think what was new for us in this investigation, what we used to identify the market abuses, was using technology, which has not been used before. And I think it paid credence to the point that was made in the diagnostic report on us as SEC, that we could do better if we were leveraging technology better. So I do think that as we adopt technology, it leaves an audit trail. It enables us to do analysis faster, and it enables us to be able to compare information that we receive with information that other people receive. In the history of the SEC, I don't know that there has been the cooperation with the police as well as the health office. We do believe that they have skills that they bring, and we have skills that we bring, and therefore that today we have a police desk in the commission. We can have some of the cases be dispensed of faster, because what we've seen across the system is that things take a little bit longer than they should. Finally, I'd like to add that we haven't had a system where we look back, and I think some of what is happening through this public hearing, some of it allows us to look back, because I think looking back allows you to say, oh, this is what I could have done better. So internally, some of the things that I would like to do is basically take some of the issues we've dealt with over the years and do case studies of that, and use them as teaching case studies so that we can better understand how did we deal with this issue, what are the things that we appreciated, and what are the things that we could have done differently. So one of my aspirations is creating a learning organization. I think that there's so much that's been thrown at SEC. We're a very small organization. We're inside 600, even with the young professionals that we brought in, the 52 of them, and we had a market that suddenly grew. One of the things that we need to do is to learn how to work smarter. And that's why an organization that was essentially analog-based, where people were not familiar with technology, when we were not using technology tools, using them allows us to work much better, even have the cohesion, I think that the Honorable Chairman had raised earlier, because one of the challenges we've had is working in silos and trying to understand what are some of the issues that one group deals with and how does it impact another group. We're also applying the same thing system-wide. I think for the first time in the history of the Capital Markets Committee, we're working more closely together so we can have early warning system and avert things from happening. I think one thing that was unfortunate in our market was that things started, some people were aware of them, they were not sure, but they didn't have the mechanism to check, and they got out of hand. with more harmony, with more collaboration, with us standing up for what we believe in very clearly, and people knowing where we stand. People can feel comfortable to come to us. People have told me in the past that they didn't feel as comfortable because they weren't sure whether they would be reprimanded. Whistleblowing and organized campaigns management framework is also very, very useful in this respect. So those are the things that come to mind immediately as to some of the learnings from dealing with our institution over the last 2 years and inheriting what had happened in our markets. Thank you.
Finally, for announcement for adjournment, I want all public officers to understand. Obviously, allegations must fly. I remember when I was the Secretary to the Government of my state, somebody just writes in the internet, they used to call it Taraba Transparency Network. Some persons in the videos. You know, they now say, well, Sudi is one of those the government uses to siphon resources. And that in the election petition cases, we siphoned or funded the election petition with 10 billion naira. I mean, it's ridiculous. Our subvention then with ITR was not more than 3 billion. So if we have to expend 10 billion, how could we have paid salaries? You know? And apart from that, from beginning to the end, the governor I know I was supervising the whole election petition did not spend more than 150 million, which was privately funded, you know, because a petition is a private affair. It's not the governor that has been sued. What is a lot of stories. So this goes by the way. So I just want you to feel that what if an allegation is made against me, I should just respond and that's all. On this note, we are adjourning to tomorrow 10 o'clock for continuation of here. 10 o'clock we say.
However, the first line of protection for any investor is knowledge. And if you don't know about what is being marketed to you, please don't accept it. That is, for me, one of the most important things that I would say to the investing public. There are financial experts, one that are registered with us, who can help you manage your resources. It is important to save for the future, to save for the education of your children, to save for your health. But please make sure that you use experts that are recognized to help you in investing. If you have any problems, we're all a phone call away, we're an email away. We are available to interact with you and support you. I can continue the marketing if you would like me to do that, in terms of just explaining that there are mechanisms that we put in place today which can support an investor today that didn't exist in the past. It is still work in progress, but it is better to come in now, given that on a relative basis, looking at fundamental, and this is not about the bubble that we had between 2006 and 2009, where basically people were manipulating their share price. This is on the basis of fundamentals. We've had a correction. That is why you're seeing that the banks were not doing as well as they were doing, but now that their results are coming up, they're doing better. That is why companies like the breweries, the Nestle, and the others, if you see their prices today, that correction has occurred, and they're doing very, very well. That is what I will say to investing public, but we're available to support investors. I don't know if that's fine. In the time that this statement was made in press, because that was very reassuring.
You should have responded.
I wasn't aware of the statement, and I don't even know when the statement was made, how it was was made and all the time. You're just bringing it to my attention. And I suspect it's the same one that you asked the CEO of the stock exchange. The first time I was hearing, essentially, for example, if somebody makes statements today, all of us have been sitting here, so I would not have read the papers to know about the statement, but I'm not aware of the statement that you're referring to.
The media officer now.
So great job. My point though is...
The media
Thank you. Question. And well, I want to thank the DG for her candor. Judging from your responses, I know that you are very highly experienced in the market. But I'd love to know this market where you gather your experience as an operator and for how long. And then I want you also to tell this committee how helpful has that experience been in developing new tools, new regulatory tools for our capital market. Thank you.
Can I just add then, Dalla, Chairman, it will be as a that made a presentation before this House. And among other things, the issue of corporate governance and all that came up. And then even there are some administrative charges that they told us were also impacting negatively on your responsibility as DG Secretary. And I will quote a paragraph here, Mr. Chairman, with your permission. It says that it is important to note that the Securities and Exchange Commission is one parastatal in Nigeria carrying out their duties. However, due to incompetence, intransigence, procrastination, arrogance, and stubbornness, the DG has persistently refused to work in harmony with the board, the executive commissioners, and the entire members of staff of the commission. Rather, she depends largely on few inexperienced staff she had illegally employed. This has grounded the commission's operations. Mr. Chairman, I will want to seek the DG's indulgence to respond to this allegation. Thank you. Honorable Buba, maybe I'll start by responding and saying that I do think that it's a frivolous allegation. Absolutely, I mean, people write documents. This is a country. I've been I have over the last 6 weeks had a lot of frivolous allegations made, and it doesn't deter me because usually when that happens, it means that you're doing the right thing. That somebody is a bit worried. So it is a frivolous allegation, is what I would say in the interest of time. But I think there was a related question first by Honorable Dogar as to what prepares me for this job. My background and explain the aspects of it that prepare me for this job. I started my career after youth corps, after teaching in the University of Benin in 1984 to 1985, working for Centerpoint. From 1985 to 1987, working directly on capital market issues. Indeed, both the Vice Chair or CEO of BGL joined Centerpoint after I had actually already left, and the current president of the Chartered Institute of Stockbrokers also joined Centerpoint after I had already left. I worked there for 2 years, and all of what I did related to capital markets, amongst others, because I think I've listened to some of the sessions where there was some question around whether I had cognitive experience, and I think I had very specific capital market experience. I worked for the African Development Bank from 1992 to 2009, 17 years, and that is directly capital market experience, and I'll explain why I say that. I first of all covered financial institutions in West and North Africa as a financial analyst. Some of the skills that you require in this job require you to be familiar with financial analysis. I was then a funding officer, an investment officer, the head of a trading room, and the head of a portfolio management team. I was group treasurer, And group treasurer for multilateral agencies is not the same as the treasurer of a commercial bank, because you're working on both sides of the balance sheet. You're raising money and you're investing money. I was also vice president of the African Development Bank. I was vice president of corporate services, but in that time, I was the chairman of our staff retirement plan. I was also, at the same time, on the board of the International Financing Facility for Immunization, which is one of the most innovative capital market vehicles that you have had to date. It is the Gordon Brown initiative. Now it's a multi-donor initiative. I served on that initiative because it was purely a capital market initiative that was bringing capital market resources to solving one of the most difficult development challenges. So I have 19 years of direct experience in capital markets. Let me now focus on that experience. Issuance of securities. I have issued and led issuance of securities in US dollars. Many people may not remember French francs and Dutch marks. Those are currencies that I either supervised or I issued, and I'm not going to start talking about the amount, because some reporters then reported that I was bashful in explaining the size of funds that I had managed or the size of money that I had raised. Japanese yen, the euro, Singapore dollars, Hong Kong dollars, South African rand, Botswana pula, Tanzanian shilling, Ghanaian cedis, Nigerian naira, euros, yes, the euro bond transactions. I basically set up the framework for the African Development Bank to start issuing euro bonds denominated in African currencies. And there are a few other currencies I could go on and on. In terms of structures, Eurodashes, medium-term programs, some of what it is that we've introduced into our markets recently were the vehicles that I used for the issuance. I already talked about working at Centerpoint. Most of my experience in equities really came through the work that I did in Centerpoint. I also led a team that developed products for the African Development Bank to offer to its clients, both private sector and public sector. So issues like local currency denominated types of products, and I say local currency being local currency in Africa. So for example, the ADB was the one that was most active in issuing in South African rand and lending in South African rand for those in the Southern African zone. Products like guarantees and many others. Another aspect which I think is particularly critical, which people don't pay enough attention to because it's relatively a new area for us as we focus on fixed income securities, is issues about ratings. I led the initiative, as group treasurer, I was essentially the custodian of the ratings of the African Development Bank. And some of you may be familiar with the African Development Bank. Remember that in 1995, there was a downgrade by one of the rating agencies. When I then became group treasurer, I said one of the mandates that I would have is to restore that rating. And that happened within 2 years of me being group treasurer. But I would add to this that I was one of those who facilitated the focus of rating agencies from outside of Africa on ratings within Africa and focus the government community on the importance of ratings, because under the auspices of what we do to promote more openness and more transparency, we work with entities like Standard & Poor's and Fitch to bring greater understanding of the value of ratings to the continent. I also work on advisory work for central banks and ministries of finance across Africa. And many of their issues related to capital markets, the regulation, the framework. I worked as a resource person even for WIFM, for West Africa, or the equivalent in East and Southern Africa met me. Fund management. I had at the board hearing explained that I spent a lot of time in fund management. I was an investment officer managing some of the currencies that I have mentioned. But I was also the head of the team. I rose to become the head of the team. I managed portfolios in Dutch francs, French francs, Japanese yen, US dollars. I managed different kinds of asset classes, asset-backed securities, different kinds of bonds. I ran, as I mentioned, the trading room. We were talking today earlier, the CEO of the Securities was talking about our approval of securities lending. And that was something that I was already working on. The tools that we're trying to introduce in our market, including Bloomberg and Reuters, I already used through my career at the African Development Bank. Financial analysis and accounting, very crucial at this time. We talked earlier, both in your discussion with the CEO of the stock exchange, we talked about international financial reporting standards, the experience that I bring to them and to leading my colleagues in supporting publicly listed companies to transition to IFRS comes from my own experience in transitioning, working for ADB as one of the top leadership team members in finance in ADB on the ADB transition to IFRS. And of course, multilateral development bank financial statements are much more complex, and the issues are much more complex than what we're dealing with today. Many of you may be aware that the group treasurer of the Multilateral Development Bank has to annually, as one of the roles, basically present the institution to the shareholders. And the shareholders of the Multilateral Development Bank are ministries or are represented by ministers. And at those events, you have all kinds of stakeholders. In preparing for that, you have to be somebody who is well versed in financial analysis and accounting. Of course, also if you're marketing to investors across the world, if I'm selling ADB bonds,
if you mention those things, you know they are capital market related. So those go ahead.
Sorry, Honorable Chairman, it's because that I'm surprised I'm being asked the question given my background. That's why I don't know the extent that you would like me to go to explain my background, because it's really surprising to me.
It's okay.
But I do want to say two more things on this issue of background. The experience of having been part of a transformation team in a larger institution helps me in this job, whether it's the technology issues, the HR issues, or change management issues. Even if it's the courage to expand the kinds of petitions that Honorable Gruber was very kind enough to share with me. Because if you haven't done it was even worse, I can imagine. But I'm just saying that if I hadn't had that experience and exposure of having been through it before, where when you're trying to reform, those who are enemies of reform want to undermine the reform. But Chairman, I just want to say that beyond government experience or capital market experience, what I have discovered over the last 2 years, that what it is that I bring beyond all of this, which I have enough of, is standing for the truth and having the courage to make sure that we do things that are in the interest of this country, despite whatever the temporary cost may be. That, for me, is what I've learned over the last 2 years, is probably most important in this area. So I can continue if you want me to. Okay.
I want to know, obviously, there is freedom of association, it's a constitutional guarantee, unless if the constitution itself specifically excludes certain organizations. I want to know whether...
I don't know, I was just wondering why you were asking, whether it's to encourage us to be part of that.
I'm laying the foundation for another question. You don't have, the staff don't have a union.
No, we don't have a union.
Good. Now, in your paragraph 41, thus enhancing organizational effectiveness and internal controls. Management has taken active steps to minimize incidents of leakages and inefficient utilization of the Commission's resources. This has been achieved in part by heightening the alertness of our internal control mechanisms and adherence to a stringent regime of cost optimization. When I'm concerned about organizational effectiveness, then incidents of leakages, I don't restrict it to finances. Now, then paragraph 46. It says enhancing coordination amongst regulators. One of the major challenges which characterize the pre-crisis financial services industry was the lack of coordination and cooperation amongst the regulators. The very irregularity cooperation presented fertile ground for regulator arbitrage. Indeed, the level of collaboration across the regulatory stakeholders was at its barest minimum at the time. Now, I want to link this with what is happening in SEC about meetings, about cooperation among staff, whether managerial or support staff. And I want to use that with the variety of leakages of documents. Now, in an executive session by this committee held on the 3rd of this month, which were empowered by our practices, and I want to read it. Whenever it is determined by a majority of members present that the evidence or testimony at an investigative hearing may tend to defend, degrade, or incriminate any person or persons, such testimony or evidence shall be presented in the executive session. Now, we are confronted with documents from either some of the staff or purported staff. And because some extent it may lead to them being incriminated, we have them at the executive session. And in their submissions, we will avail you with all the documents coupled with an altercation that took place between somebody who was writing on your behalf. No. The publication by Ocasio. I know you must have known Mr. Ocasio very well. No. Yes. It's a paper publication in which somebody, in fact, he addressed this secretary should avail them of the newspaper copy, or rather the internet printout, in which Ocasio was said to have lied under oath, and he addressed this panel. Now, juxtaposing that with the submissions made by the so-called concerned staff, you have to know whatever evidence that comes before this panel, the weight we attach to it is what matters. It's not the allegations that have been made. Now, we have accepted all this in our executive session, and I want to go through, because we are doing this, we will answer some of these questions. And we are going to avail you with documents to prove that there are leakages in SEC, which, to our mind, as legislators, we feel there is no cohesion in coordination in SEC. If sensitive documents will be flying to journalists and to everybody with so many allegations. We don't feel comfortable. We need to know what is really happening there. And there is also issues you raised about, improvement of 50 professionals and others. Issues were raised about, their experience. And some of their staff raised fundamental issues, saying, in fact, about 70-something staff. They showed their ministers, their professionals and whatnot, that they were sent away without due process. And we know that there is a condition of, it was not during your time, Obviously, you were not the one who sent them, but at least the petition and complaint to the commission, we want to know the action you have taken. There are a lot of questions that were raised. And in one of the memorandum, which I will quickly go through some of the highlights. This memorandum is written by the staff of SEC to draw their attention to the following issues that are contributing to the collapse of the stock market. It is on the style of Mr. administration, which is high-handed, I suppose, and autocratic. First, they brought about recruitment into SEC. Upon the resumption of office by Ms. Kote, the Director General of SEC, she told the staff she met on ground that they are incompetent, and as such she is going to sack as many as possible. This threat created fear and insecurity among the staff. As a prelude to achieving her aim, recruitment without laboratory, she recruited over 50 new staff as contract staff and offered them placement well above the staff on ground. And most of the younger in graduation to those they met. The recruitment itself was not done by placing advertisement, be it internal or external, or based on any existing vacancies. 2. Overseas training. Those staff she employed, she immediately sent them to overseas schools in different countries, whereas the staff she met on ground, she not only reduced their choice of countries for training because she single-handedly decided on, but also used her external staff she brought to decide the countries and schools they will go for such training. 3. The policy of promotion. In fact, before Ms. Hotel came on board, after 4 years staffs are promoted, Ms. Hotel cancelled that and introduced promotion examination. She conducted that examination for the first and the last time in October 2009. After she set, I don't know the time again, annual allowances, withdrawal of annual tax salary increment, despotic style of administration, and a lot of other things. We have paid you with these documents to come and admit or refute those.
Mr. Chairman, you already told the public. I want to tell you, just like I said about them, some of them sound frivolous even as we were pointing them out. So I refute them already. We've already made it public. So I'd like to tell the public that absolutely not. Many of the things that have been, and that is what you contend with when you reform. I think those who know my track record know that I am not an irresponsible leader. And at no point would I come in and say to people, you're incompetent, or I would never, and that language was used on me by someone in this honorable house. And I was shocked to my dead bones because I would never use it. I would not be frivolous. Secondly, as you pointed out, some of what is being said may have happened before I joined the SEC. And that's why I made the point about beyond direct capital market experience, beyond government experience, but having experience and the backbone to withstand some of those who do not want this country to make progress. Because the numbers being bandied about recruiting 50 staff. Do people know how many staff the SEC has? So frankly, Honorable Chairman, you have read out the issues, even though you said you had an executive session. They're frivolous, and it's a pity.
No, what I say,
it is a pity that
executive session, understand the context.
I know, but you
When
made
it
it
comes
sound
to eliminating on the people that will give the evidence.
No, but I'm saying that you said you will give it to me so I can respond to it, but you told the whole world something that was frivolous, which I think there is, maybe it's better actually in reading the press. The calumny that has been encouraged in terms of damaging my personal reputation, unfortunately will not stop me in trying to serve my country. And I hope that because I'm told that this is prevalent in our society, that you will also help us to try and ensure that people do not use this means to try and undermine the work that we are trying to do. I do think that it's very, very important.
So, I will hand over. This is just one of it. The actual one, there are so many things that are not.
They are administrative issues. I think what would have been proper was for you to handle.
You are not. Please take exception to that. You don't control the procedure here. If you have procedures in fact, we have procedure here too. We are guided by law. So you are not to teach us the procedure we should adopt here. Please. With all respect. So, we are holding documents, all the documents here. This is just a figment of a tip of an iceberg. So, you should go through this document and then respond in writing. Thank you.
Chairman. On the issue of AMCON, and the way forward. It remains the objective of this hearing, and of course the objective of SEC and other regulators, that the market should be redeemed. AMCON, the way it is, being almost a public entity today, would you, given your advantage position, you sound very robust in terms of the market and given your thesis. Can you help this committee the way forward for AMCON, because we wouldn't want to have another building up somewhere else. Couldn't it be better managed as a private entity than a public entity today? Because it's picking the non-performing loans, am I correct? So share with us from your vantage position how best AMCON should be in terms of the future.
Board member of AMCON. The structure of AMCON, most bad banks, I actually don't know any bad bank that is a private entity. All asset management companies are actually set up, yes, in that structure, the ones that I'm familiar with, so it is not abnormal to have that structure. I think what has been the architects of AMCON have envisioned that it can leverage the weight of the federal government through the guarantees that is provided by bonds, but allow the banking sector to finance it through the sinking fund initiative. So what it's been able to achieve is, first, it's got this initial funding, which gives it very strong backing from the Ministry of Finance and the central bank. It has a debenture from the central bank. But what it is going to aspire to do is to move towards having a sinking fund that is developed such that the bank can contribute to that. I think that is very unique, but also it's in a way to manage the moral hazard issues, because even the healthy banks are profited from the role that AMCON is playing, and therefore should contribute to ensuring that we're able to give AMCON resources to keep to ensure that NPLs are out of the banking system. Thank you.
I've been operating by the chair for the last 50 minutes. We exhibited during our delivery a passion for fighting and fishing and fighting these malfeasance and those that must have generated this crisis.